Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, June 25th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, 7 pitchers who are on a roll right now. We had Elly Cruz versus Oneil Cruz. Awesome matchup. Both hit massive home runs in that one. 3 slumping hitters and much more to talk about. Let's jump in.
That ball had a family!
Oof. Both of those baseballs had a family. Oneil versus Elly. We'll talk about that later. Chris, player of the night from Monday's action.
Yeah, I mean the Elly De La Cruz one was incredible. But my goodness gracious player that we are going to talk about and analyze is Taj Bradley, who continues to do a lot of things really well. Continues to look like a somewhat different pitcher than the one that he had been in a, somewhat disappointing fashion prior to this season, and still has some warts, it's fair to say. But 5 1/3 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts in this one, still 4 walks, has the ERA down to 3.81 after this start, and that splitter's been a real weapon for him. He had 7 whiffs with the pitch today, generated a bunch of weak contact with it, 35% CSW rate with it. Really, really good stuff from that pitch. It's a pitch that he reworked this offseason. I think it's a different version of the splitter that he had last season, and he's throwing it a lot more as his, relatively brief season has gone on. His usage rate entering this start in the month of June with that pitch, 31%. He threw it 35% of the time today. It has coincided with an improved quality of contact allowed by Taj Bradley, improved control before today, and, a really solid swing and miss rate. I'm hesitant to fully buy into Taj Bradley because the command and control are still a little iffy, but clearly he's a super talented pitcher. The splitter has become, like I said earlier, a real weapon for him. And it's the kind of pitcher who I think it makes a lot of sense to bet on. And in an era or in a season, I guess, where there are so many pitchers getting good results who I don't really believe in, I'd rather bet on Taj Bradley, who has the elite strikeout potential, over some of the guys who have gotten better results maybe, but I don't think are as exciting.
The last 4 starts for Taj Bradley, he was one of the 7 pitchers I have for that segment later on that are on a roll right now. And last 4 starts for Taj, 1.54 ERA, a 1.03 whip, 29 strikeouts over 23 1/3. You mentioned that strikeout upside, 11.1 K per 9 for Taj Bradley so far. He kind of has this 3 true outcomes nature as a pitcher where it's lots of strikeouts, walks could be a problem at times, and hard contact has led to home runs. I will say over this 4-start stretch, he's doing a much better job limiting the hard contact. So if he can continue to work that splitter in and build off of this, I think we have something with Taj Bradley. But as you mentioned, not fully buying in yet. I would ask, can you sell high on him? But I just don't know how realistic. Like, what are you going to get for Taj Bradley, even if you try to sell, right? So I guess you can look into it, but I would just reap the rewards of a former top pitching prospect that looks like he's kind of figuring things out right now for a really good team and really good organization.
Yeah, I would say if you're talking about sell high pitchers, Bradley doesn't really enter the conversation for me. And there's a lot of, Seth Lugo and Ronel Blanco and Michael King, are pitchers who are all Brian Wu, if this hamstring injury ends up being relatively minor, are all pitchers in a similar range of the rankings who I would be more inclined to sell high on than Taj Bradley.
I think that makes sense. And I realized while talking about Taj Bradley, I said on a really good team. I'm just so used to Tampa Bay being really, really good.
Yeah, they're just okay.
So much. Yeah, 1 game under 500, 4 games out of a wild card spot. So I guess they still have some time to figure things out. So they have not been really good this year, but obviously over the past decade or so, they have been a really, really good organization. Let's talk about Alec Bohm as my player of the night. And he went through a down stretch for a few weeks recently, but he has turned things back on. 4 for 5 with a sock and a shoe here on Monday. His 9th home run, his 4th stolen base, last 10 games for Bohm, a 476 batting average, 3 homers, 12 RBI, 2 steals. And overall on the season, he's batting .313, 873 OPS, 64 RBI, has been massive. The expected stats look great. Currently ranks as a top 5 third baseman in both roto and head-to-head points. Chris, at what point do we just buy in on this Alec Bohm breakout and maybe start to move him higher up the rankings, like a top, 5, 6, 7 first and third baseman rest of season?
Yeah, I mean, we've got, a 3-month stretch this season where he really had, like you mentioned, he went through a rougher period, and that's sort of true. You look at like Baseball Savant has this cool feature where they have a rolling average expected WOBA over, you can do 50, 100, 200 plate appearances. And if you do by 100 plate appearances, his worst stretch lately is the 100 plate appearances ending on May 28th, where he had a 329 expected WOBA. Last year's expected WOBA for the whole season was 343. Like the slump this season is not much worse than what he did overall last season. And, May was a bad month. He hit 243. He slugged 369. His expected WOBA in that month was 355. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot really good going on with Alec Bohm. He's cut the strikeout rate, but the quality of contact has been better. It's not like a dramatic change in batted ball profile by any means. He's actually hitting slightly more balls on the ground this season, although basically everything is right within like a 1.5 in percentage points from where it was last season. He is pulling the ball a little more, which has helped him tap into a little more power. And he's just hitting the ball a little harder across the board. Hard hit rate up to 46%, average exit velocity 90.6, 89.4 last year. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little harder to write off as just a hot stretch when it's multiple hot stretches now over the course of the first 3 months of the season. And Alec Bohm is someone who has just gotten a little better every season. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough to make him someone we should be treating as probably not like a top 5 third baseman or anything like that. But, like I've got him 12th. Maybe that's probably too low. Me and Scott have him 12th. You've got him 9th in Roto. Maybe, is there that much of a difference between him and Alec Bregman at this point in their careers? Is Alec Bregman even better than Alec Bohm at this point in their careers? Do the marginal steals that Spencer Steer gives you really matter that much relative to Alec Bohm, especially since Spencer Steer has really slowed down? Is Manny Machado healthy enough to be ranked above Alec Bohm? I think those are questions worth asking.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I moved him up as much as I did. It's 9th at third base in Roto. I moved him up to 8th at third base in head-to-head points, and he's back-to-back with Alex Bregman. I think you can make that argument to move Bohm ahead of Bregman. It's just, in a points league, Bregman has been so elite for so long in terms of that strikeout to walk ratio. And I still think
Bohm's kind of a standout there too, right?
Yeah, I think
not quite as much, doesn't walk as much, but the strikeout rate's down to 14% now.
Yeah. And it's probably his better format because last I checked, he was on pace for almost 60 doubles. So even though he's not hitting home runs, those doubles matter more in a head-to-head points league. So
yeah, wow. He's got 28 already entering today. He had 31 last season.
That's crazy. Yeah. So there's an argument for it. I have Alec Bohm 8th in my first base rankings as well, but just ahead of him, I have Christian Walker and Josh Naylor. So I don't think that I can move him any higher there, but
yeah,
in third base, I might move him ahead of Alex Bregman.
Yeah, the thing with Walker, he steals a few bases, which helps. I think he's a better source of power than Alec Bohm.
Yeah.
Naylor, it just he's on a 40 homer pace with just crazy run production paces. I think his RBI pace is like over 120 or something. It's just
so is Bohm's though. Bohm's RBI wild.
It's just Naylor's only hitting 244. It should be higher with his strikeout rate, but for whatever reason it isn't. Also, because we mentioned Josh Naylor. Really good piece on Baseball Prospectus this week. I think it came out over the weekend or maybe Friday about there were some changes to, is it still Progressive Field?
I think so.
I'm at that age where I just can't keep up with what the stadiums are called, and I just call them what they were called when I was 15. But Progressive Field, they made some changes to the outfield, or not the outfield dimensions, but like the seating that has maybe created like a wind tunnel effect. And it's like the one park in baseball that is playing significantly better for homers than it did last year. So sorry, that's just one thing that came to mind that I meant to mention on yesterday's podcast. But could explain why the Guardians are seeing a little power boost, especially from the left side of the plate.
Yeah, according to StatCast Park Factors this season, Progressive Field ranks third in home run park factor, which if we turn on the 3-year rolling average, that brings Progressive to 25th. So that's
I mean, it's always been a pretty bad home run park.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty stark difference. So
so that it's inconclusive is what the conclusion that the article came to, but it's at least worth mentioning as a factor in why, Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez are both on 40 homer paces. Steven Kwan has already hit a career high in homers. That was just something I wanted to mention.
Okay. Yeah. Just to put a bow, Alec Bohm is awesome. This breakout pretty much looks like it's for real. And if you have him, I would not be looking to sell high and just continue to reap the rewards of Alec Bohm in that awesome Phillies lineup. Want to give an honorable mention to Cole Ragans, who ate the Marlins alive. He was so awesome. 6 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts. He had 26 swinging strikes on 108 pitches, 10 on the changeup, 7 on the fastball, 6 on the slider. He's allowed 3 earned runs or less in 15 of 17 starts. He's got a 3.03 ERA, 11 K per 9. Cole Ragans is awesome.
Really good pitcher.
Yeah. Anything to add, or just it's pretty much it?
Nope. I mean, it feels like it's like 3 walks every time out, and that was the one thing we were concerned about with Cole Ragans, but he's getting so many strikeouts that it genuinely doesn't matter.
Yeah. The underlying numbers love Cole Ragans as well. I think I moved him up to 7th in my starting pitcher rankings, and I might move him ahead of Luis Castillo this week. Not that I don't think Castillo is bad by any means. I just feel like Cole Ragans might have just surpassed him. It's not really a Castillo thing. It's more of a Ragans thing. Quick reminder that you can download and follow Fantasy Baseball Today on Spotify. You can do the same thing with our 5-minute podcast, FBT in 5. If you're watching us live on YouTube, then you can scan that QR code that will take you right to the FBT feed on Spotify. Let's take our first break, and when we return, we'll hit the news and notes right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in. News and notes. Fernando Tatis was placed in the IL with a stress reaction in his upper right leg, retroactive to June 22nd. Apparently, he could still play through the injury, but it won't get better without rest. So they opted to go this route, put Fernando Tatis on the IL. And we were talking beforehand, Chris, it was kind of weird the way the details came out, because originally he got hit on the arm by a pitch on Friday, and he had a triceps injury. He sat out Saturday and Sunday. Turns out he's also dealing with this quad injury. He could be out the minimum time on the IL. He could be out until after the All-Star break. So it's just kind of ambiguous right now.
Yeah, it's weird because not a doctor, but the quad is a muscle as far as I know. And you don't have a stress reaction in your muscle. So I don't know what happened here as far as, it was originally reported that he wasn't going to have imaging done on the injury. Maybe I'm not sure exactly what the timetable was there, but yeah, the timing was a little weird and unfortunate. Hopefully it ends up being closer to the minimum stay, but yeah, not great for Fernando Tatis, unfortunately. And he had been dealing with the quad injury apparently for a couple of weeks before they figured out what was wrong.
Yeah. Just another one in a long line of injuries this season between, for a long time there, first month of the season, it was, all right, this pitcher, that pitcher. Every day we'd come on here, but now it's, all right, we're missing Kyle Tucker. We're missing Mookie Betts. We lost Ronald Acuna for the season. Now Fernando Tatis goes on the IL. So it adds up, and it's, it's a pretty big blow for fantasy. And obviously we're all trying to navigate this together because everybody has injuries, no matter what team you have, no matter what players you have suffered some kind of fantasy injury this year.
The top 10 in ADP right now, or just the top 5. Ronald Acuna, Mookie Betts, Kyle Tucker, Fernando Tatis, Spencer Strider. 5 of the top 10, I believe, are on the IL right now. Trey Turner just came back. It was 6 of the top 12. Yeah, it's been rough.
A tough season indeed. Edwin Diaz has been handed a 10-game suspension for violating the foreign substance policy. He has the option to appeal, but as far as I know, I haven't seen a decision on that. My guess is he won't appeal.
I don't know how you even appeal it, right? Like you can, rosin is legal, but you can have too much of it. And if the umpire decides you have too much, I don't know how you say, no, I didn't have too much. Like that's it's silly.
It's such a weird thing that they have going on right now. Yeah, it's just so subjective too. It's certain umpires might think it's too much. Other umpires not, I don't know. It's just, how do you police this right now? It's a very, very weird thing that's going on in baseball, I would say. Bo Bichette went through a full workout Monday and remains on track for activation from the IL on Tuesday. Clayton Kershaw will be shut down for at least 1 week after feeling soreness in his surgically repaired left shoulder during a bullpen session over the weekend. Wilson Contreras returned to the Cardinals lineup on Monday after missing 6.5 weeks with a fractured left forearm. He hit third in the lineup and went 1 for 4 with a run and an RBI. Welcome sight back to the catcher landscape in fantasy, obviously. Zach Gallen threw a live batting practice session on Monday. He's been out since May 30th with a right hamstring strain. Brian Wu left his start Monday due to right hamstring tightness. What's interesting is that his velocity was way up across the board in this start, around 2 miles per hour on all of his pitches. I don't think that contributed to the injury. It's just something I thought was noteworthy.
I think he is so fascinating. Like, well, I don't know if you watched this start, but it was just fastball after fastball in the strike zone.
Yeah.
Like he's not trying to get chases. There's nothing complicated about Brian Wu as a pitcher right now. It's just, I'm going to throw you a fastball in the strike zone and you're going to try to hit it. And I don't think it's going to keep working. Obviously, the fact that he keeps getting hurt doesn't help, although this is very different than the recurring elbow and forearm scares that we've had. But yeah, it's unfortunate just because he's a fascinating pitcher to watch.
Blake Snell will throw a bullpen session Tuesday and start at AAA on Friday. Gavin Williams will make his next rehab start at AAA on Wednesday. Yu Darvish will not rejoin the rotation as expected Tuesday due to, quote, a little right elbow inflammation. I mean, I guess it's something that could be measured from a little to a lot, but
I don't know if there's ever a little elbow injury. I guess maybe there can be, but
yeah, doesn't sound good. I think he dealt with bone spurs in his elbow last year and didn't have surgery on it. So could be something that's still lingering. Nolan Arenado has missed 2 straight with a left forearm issue, but hopes to return in the coming days. Starling Marte has been advised to rest for the next 15 days after being diagnosed with bone inflammation in his right knee. He is likely to go on the IL.
I didn't know your bones could get inflamed.
It might have been I don't know, not correct news update wherever I pulled that from, but that's what they wrote. So that's what I'm going with. Blue Jays bullpen updates. Yimi Garcia progressed to long toss from 120 feet, and Jordan Romano played light catch on Monday. TJ Friedl was placed on the IL with a left hamstring strain and is expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks. I did not mention this yesterday, but Heston Kjerstad was recalled by the Orioles, and he started in left field on Monday with Colton Cowser on the bench. Heston Kjerstad finished 2 for 4 with a double. Obviously a name to watch. We've talked about this so much this season that hitting prospects have struggled mightily, first getting called up. Now, Kjerstad has had a few tastes already. He got called up late last year. He got called up a little bit earlier this season. They call him up, but they don't really give him an opportunity to play every day. So I think it's hard for him to get in a groove and get going. But with Colton Cowser struggling the way
that's the bigger thing, I think.
They might have an opportunity available here for Kjerstad. So
I think the bigger concern is Colton Cowser's been pretty awful for pretty close to 2 months now. OPS under 600 in both May and June. Might be time to, I don't want to say give up on Colton Cowser, but I'm a little worried about the playing time. I think he was out of the lineup today for Kjerstad.
Yes, he was.
And yeah, he has a 574 OPS since April 26th. So last 2 months, yeah.
Not great. David Fry was back in the lineup Monday as the DH after leaving Sunday with right elbow inflammation. Merrill Kelly is targeting a return in mid-August. He's been out since April 23rd with a right shoulder strain. Tommy Edman could begin a rehab assignment soon. He's missed the entire season to this point as he recovers from right wrist surgery. Lars Nootbaar took batting practice Monday and will do so again on Tuesday. He's been out since late May with an oblique injury. The Mariners activated Jorge Polanco, who missed just under a month with a right hamstring strain. He's someone that could matter in roto leagues with a middle infield spot. Probably going to take him some time to get going, and he was pretty bad early on in the season, but we'll pay attention to Jorge Polanco. Patrick Sandoval has a high-grade flexor tear and a high-grade flexor strain, and a torn UCL in his left elbow. He'll undergo Tommy John surgery. And last but not least, Chris, your Florida are champions. Congrats to you, my friend.
Vamos, gatos. They're going crazy at JP Mulligan's. The char hut is lit. The abuelitas are outside of La Carreta with their pots and pans going crazy.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's how South Florida celebrates championships. People just drive down streets with their windows down, banging pots and pans out of their mid-sized SUVs. It's a ridiculous place, and I love it.
Oh, man. So I try to keep tabs on all sports as much as I can. Like, I've dabbled throughout my life, basketball, football, obviously baseball, and played some soccer, tennis. Hockey is the only sport I've never gotten into it. I didn't play it at all growing up, so that's probably why. But yeah, it's so
hockey's
weird.
Actually the one sport I played like organized. And it's because the 96 Panthers, I was 8 years old. Mighty Ducks D2 had just come out. The Panthers made the Stanley Cup, and I got super into hockey, and it was super fun. I used to go to all the games back in the like Pavel Bure days, the Peter Worrell days, the Roberto Luongo days, and then they were the most irrelevant franchise in the big four professional sports for like 20 years. So it's been really fun to watch the last couple of years, then blossom into now a championship team. It's been very rewarding.
All right, let's get back into the baseball action and 7 pitchers who are on quite the run right now. We will start with Tanner Bybee, another strong start at the Orioles. Obviously a tough matchup. 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 of those earned, had 7 strikeouts, 14 whiffs on 96 pitches. He's throwing this curveball more in 3 of his last 4 starts. I wonder if it could be a classification issue because I had his StatCast. I had the game open on StatCast, and I saw the stats change in front of my eyes from it took pitches away from slider and added them to curveball. So I wonder if maybe there's a misclassification thing. All that matters is last 8 starts, Tanner Bybee, a 2.30 ERA, a .91 whip, 62 strikeouts over 47 innings. How much are you buying what we've seen from Tanner Bybee almost the last 2 months at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we really liked the potential when he got the call initially last season. We liked what we saw for the most part as a rookie. 3 swing and miss pitch secondaries for him. There does appear to be something going on with the curveball. The velocity today was up about 2 miles per hour. On everything else, it was more like 0.3 to 0.4 miles per hour. He was getting less vertical break with the curveball. So I don't know if he's throwing a tighter version that the StatCast system is struggling to pick up on or what, but it was a pretty effective pitch for him today. 3 whiffs on 15 swings. The slider was a little better, 3 on 8 swings, but it's all in all, I mean, I think you're inclined to buy in just because this was a guy that we really liked the talent level all along. And the problem for the most part was he just wasn't putting guys away. And over the last, really couple of months, the strikeout numbers have really improved. In June, especially, it's been bonkers. 37 strikeouts and 22 and a third innings pitched.
Yeah.
So I don't expect that to sustain, but he was someone early on in the season where it was like, shouldn't he be better than he is? And now we're starting to see that, yeah, maybe he is. So I'm happy to see it for sure.
Another one in a similar situation, had the hamstring injury, Justin Steele. Missed about a month of the season, came off the IL, was struggling, figured he's going to get better at some point, and we are witnessing that happen right now. He was at the Giants, 7 1/3 innings, 2 runs allowed, 9 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 106 pitches, 11 of those on the fastball, which was great in this one. He did allow 14 hard hits, but he also was getting lots of whiffs. So kind of a little bit of a Taj Bradley thing, like lots of whiffs, lots of hard contact in this one. But generally, Justin Steele is usually very good at limiting the hard contact. Last 6 starts, 1.38 ERA, 0.97 whip. And the numbers now, Chris, look pretty much exactly where we thought they would be for Justin Steele.
Yeah, no, the one thing that I think about with Justin Steele is he is, for all intents and purposes, a 2-pitch pitcher, right? He throws the fastball and the slider about 90% of the time. But that's sort of not 100% accurate, because what it really is Justin Steele throws 3 different variants on those 2 pitches each. He'll cut the 4-seamer. He'll throw it with a little more ride. He'll throw the slider sometimes a little loopier. Sometimes it'll be more like a cutter. And so what I wonder, because he doesn't have huge velocity, even for a lefty, 92 miles per hour in this climate is close to average. Maybe what we saw early on is, when he's not 100%, when he's a little rusty, the margin for error might be a little slim. He needs to really have his feel. And this is something that we've talked a lot about with like Aaron Nola, who has a different approach, but similar, not huge stuff vibes. And it could just be that when things aren't great, things can get pretty bad for Justin Steele. But he is, we're going on probably close to 350 innings of Justin Steele pitching like this in a way that, yeah, it's a little funky. It doesn't look like really anyone else in baseball, but at some point, yeah, there's not really any reason to be skeptical. Yeah, 349 and a third innings entering this start over the last 3 seasons with a 3.12 ERA.
Next up is Garrett Crochet, another solid start. This one up against the Dodgers, 5 2/3 shutout, 5 hits, 6 strikeouts, 16 whiffs on 91 pitches. He only allowed 1 hard hit against that lineup, the Dodgers stacked lineup. And he continues to focus fastball cutter. They accounted for 93% of his pitches in this one. Last 11 starts for Crochet. It's a 1.53 ERA. It's a 0.84 whip, 90 strikeouts, over 64 2/3 innings during that stretch. So I think, and we've kind of come to this realization recently, Chris, where I don't think you need to try and sell high on Crochet. Like if you're not going to get a top 2 or 3 round player for him, just continue to reap all of these awesome rewards.
Yeah, it's a tough player to analyze. Very similar to Luis Gil, who we've grouped him with for a lot of the season. I personally, I might have a little more faith in Garrett Crochet as a pitcher than Luis Gil, but that's I think splitting hairs to a certain extent. If I was just ranking them for their next start, like Nick Pollock, when he does his pitcher rankings, he's just ranking them right now. He's not doing the rest of the season. And I think there's some merit to that. We rank rest of season. That makes it a little harder because if I was doing it the other way, Garrett Crochet and Luis Gil are probably top 12 starting pitchers right now. I think I have more faith in both of them than Dylan Cease right now. Aaron Nola, I mean, they're certainly pitching at a higher level right now in a way that looks really sustainable for both. But one, there are control concerns for Gil especially, but Crochet as well. Two, they're both at completely uncharted levels of innings pitched over the course of the last few seasons. And three, we just don't know how long they're going to remain in their respective rotations. So that remains the only concern for me with Garrett Crochet. It's just how he's going to hold up to his, continued larger role.
I will say if Crochet gets traded, I think that's probably better. Well, obviously it's better for his rest of season value because he's not on the White Sox anymore, but yeah. I think he's more likely to pitch further down the stretch if he's traded to a contender versus if he stays on the White Sox, they could just choose to, all right, we need this guy for next season. Let's shut him down, whatever, by the time he gets to like 150 innings or something like that. So if he goes to another team, I think he's probably more likely to just kind of pitch through that and continue to pitch rest of season. 3 other pitchers who are on quite the roll right now. Chris Bassitt turned in a quality start at the Red Sox, 7 innings, 2 runs, 2 strikeouts, and over his last 10 starts, it's a 2.36 ERA and a 1.13 WHIP. Matt Waldron, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts up against the Nationals. He had 15 whiffs on 107 pitches. Last 9 outings for Waldron, it's a 1.95 ERA, 0.92 WHIP. Baseball is better with a knuckleballer, so I'm happy for that. And this one, I'm just kind of sneaking it in there. He hasn't been doing it for too long, but give a little credit to James Paxton, who has looked better his last 3 starts at the White Sox. 5 shutout innings, 6 strikeouts. I get it. It's Chicago. 18 whiffs on 91 pitches. He has 15-plus swinging strikes in back-to-back starts. That is notable. Last 3 starts, a 1 ERA, a .72 WHIP for James Paxton. Chris, anything to add on Paxton, Waldron, and Chris Bassitt?
All right. Bassitt, I wanted to look up. Yeah, 4.29 career ERA in April. It is 3.67 or better in every other month of the season.
He hates April.
I don't know what it. Maybe he's cold. Maybe his hands get dry and he needs a new moisturizer or something. But this is, notably 3 years in a row, I believe, where he's just been awful in the month of April, and then has really turned things around. Now, he wasn't awful in April in 2022. Sorry. Awful in 2023. Bad this year. It's tough because I understand I understand when you see a pitcher like that struggling and you think, well, he doesn't have strikeout upside. He's old. He's not on a great team. What kind of ceiling is there? Is it worth waiting for? But it's been such a consistent overall profile by the end of the season with Chris Bassitt that I tend to just yawn when he struggles because I'm very confident he's going to figure it out. And it's not the kind of thing that I even spend much time analyzing. That's how confident I am in him figuring out. Paxton, I still don't buy it. It's 2 starts where he's gotten strikeouts. He now does have more strikeouts than walks for the season after the past 2 starts. That's terrific. But it's still overall, I think, a pretty underwhelming profile. great team context, good defense behind him, but the best I can say about Paxton is I would have dropped him for sure before the last 2 starts. I guess you don't have to drop him now, but I'm not inclined to think there's a ton of upside here.
Yeah, he could. I think James Paxton could make it work in a Tyler Anderson way where he did with the Dodgers a couple of years ago. And he was just, you pitch to a 3 or a 3.5 ERA with that team behind you. And obviously good things can happen. So we'll see how long James Paxton could stay healthy for. Obviously that's a concern as well, but he's pitching well right now. And so we will give James Paxton his credit. Let's take our final break. And when we return, Oneil versus Elly right after this.
Ready to ride?
Do you know who you're talking to?
I'm aware regardless. Celebrate a new season of The Chi.
I vow to show up for those that need help, those that just need somebody to listen.
And enjoy even more powerful series.
Oh my God.
Is that it?
And groundbreaking movies. Power for the voiceless.
You only get one life and you have to live it to the fullest.
This is my community. I love y'all.
We on the rise. Black Voices. Explore the collection on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in. Oneil Cruz versus Elly. De La Cruz was awesome on Monday. Outside of the fact that the Reds really just crushed the Pirates. But if you're into just watching great players do great things, then yeah, this game was for you. Oneil Cruz, 2 for 5 with his 11th home run. Added 3 RBI. The home run, 112.3 exit velocity, 458 feet. And it's been a weird season for Oneil Cruz, Chris, because he had a really bad April. He has been better since the start of May. 8 homers, 3 steals. It's like a 30 homer, 11 steal pace over 150 games. But overall, I mean, based on where we were drafting him, this has been a letdown season. Where you at on Oneil Cruz almost 3 months in at this point?
Yeah, it's a lot of what we feared it would be, right? Like, he has actually been quite good against right-handed pitchers. He has an 843 OPS, 8 home runs in 210 plate appearances. Hard to ask for too much more. And then he's just been a complete disaster against lefties. 26 strikeouts and 69 plate appearances is close to a 40% strikeout rate, hitting 106 with a 342 OPS entering Monday. Only 2 home runs, only 3 walks. It's a lot of, if you were hoping for Oneil Cruz to have a true breakout, what you would have needed to see was cutting the strikeout rate overall and being much better against lefties. One of those things he has gotten better at as the season has gone on. He has struck out. Did he strike out today?
No.
He didn't strike out today, so he has 46 strikeouts since the start of May. That's in 158 plate appearances. He had 45 strikeouts and 121 plate appearances in April. So that alone is reason to be optimistic. But the struggles against lefties have continued in a way that does make it harder to believe in Oneil Cruz truly breaking out and becoming a superstar. That being said, if Oneil Cruz is just a high 700s OPS bat, that's still probably a really valuable player because he's going to steal some bases, because he's going to hit for power. Became the 5th player ever to hit a home run into the Allegheny River at PNC Park on the fly. He has had like 3 or 4 now land in the Allegheny, but only 1 on the fly. Did that last week. Crushed one today. We know the skill set here is freakish, but the overall profile is still kind of underwhelming, I guess.
Yeah, especially the steals, right? I mean, that's, 6 steals on the season. And there was an article that came out earlier in the year that the leg, the ankle, still not 100%. And it's something he's going to have to play with the rest of this season, maybe the rest of his career, just something that's kind of there lingering. I mean, it hasn't affected him too much over the past 2 months. He's obviously been better. But again, a little bit of a disappointment. I will point out the StatCast numbers, still amazing. 95.1 average exit velocity, 18% barrel rate. Both of those are elite. The expected batting average is 256. So if he hits over 250 on a 30 homer, 10 to 15 steal pace, that's, like you said, that's still a really good player. But when we saw the ADP climbing inside the top 60, the top 50, we're probably going to be let down if that is all Oneil Cruz does this season.
I will say, you can make a case that he's just a better hitter than Elly De La Cruz at this point in their careers. The quality, the strikeout rate's basically identical. Oneil Cruz is a little higher, but obviously, like we talked about earlier, it's been getting better. His quality of contact metrics are actually even better than Elly De La Cruz, which is kind of amazing. 468 expected WOBA on contact. It's 437 for Elly De La Cruz, who is obviously very, very good at hitting the baseball very, very hard, but not as good as Oneil Cruz.
That is a fact. The one thing I think Elly De La Cruz has surpassed Oneil Cruz at is just an eye at the plate. He's much better at walking and noticing different pitches. And so it's something I noticed earlier on the season. I've been really impressed with that part of Elly De La Cruz's game. Let's talk about him. Obviously had a big game, 3 for 5 with his 14th home run, 3 runs, 3 RBI. The homer, 111.5 exit velocity, 439 feet. And last 10 games for Elly, it's a 385 batting average, 3 homers, 10 runs, 3 steals. This is part of the package, Chris. It's, the first month gets off to that great start. We saw some steals towards the end of May, early June. Now he's picking things back up. This is just your latest reminder that the profile for Elly De La Cruz is going to run very hot and cold, but end of season, we're going to wind up with some kind of bonkers, 25 to 30 homers, 70 plus steals, something like that.
The Reds in Great American Ballpark have a little stand on top of the batter's eye. He hit it over the batter's eye entirely. I'm sure it's happened before because it was only like 440 feet only. But that's one of those ones where you watch it and it's like, no, Statcast got that one wrong. That was at least 800 feet.
Yeah. The broadcasters were freaking out about it. So
I watched a highlight that was all for both TV broadcasts and the radio broadcasts. It's really fun if you can find it on Twitter.
Let's continue on and talk about 3 other slumping hitters. They actually all did something here on Monday, but the Royals, Vinny Pasquantino, 1 for 4 with his 8th home run. It was his first homer since June 1st. Previous 19 games since that last homer, 197 batting average, 602 OPS. Salvador Perez, 1 for 4 with his 12th homer, but previous 21 games before this, 153 batting average, 487 OPS. And Adolis Garcia, 2 for 4 with his 14th home run, 45 games since the start of May, 172 batting average, a sub 600 OPS. Chris, anything that stands out that has you actually worried about any of these names, Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, Adolis Garcia, or would you be looking to capitalize and buy if anyone was trying to sell on the cheap?
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if at some point we just sort of give up on Vinny Pasquantino being this super high upside hitter that we've hoped he would be. Now, I struggle with that one because anyone who listens to this show knows that I'm a big believer in the expected stats, and his remain really good. He's had an expected WOBA over 350 in all 3 of his seasons. It's 355 as of now, and yet he's underperformed his ex-WOBA all 3 seasons, significantly underperformed the past 2 as well. And I just don't quite know what to make of that. He does not hit the ball to the pull side in the air as often as you'd like. This season, it's only 28%. The previous 2 seasons, it was around 31%. So that could explain it. He really does, when he's hitting the ball in the air, has more of an all fields approach. And maybe that's something that will limit Vinny Pasquantino's homer production. But he should still hit for average. And there should be a lot of doubles. I guess 20 doubles so far this season. That's a pretty good number. But I don't know. The overall package just feels pretty underwhelming for Vinny Pasquantino in a way that makes me wonder if he's just not going to end up living up to our expectations for him.
Yeah, I think that's totally reasonable. I wonder about the ballpark too. I mean, it's just
it's a tough park.
It's a tough park, and I don't know. A working theory, I guess, is hitters who underperform their expected stats. It's probably ballpark related, right? Something like Kaufman and whatever's happened with Rogers Center the past couple of years, and Vlad has been underperforming his expected stats tremendously. So I just wonder if there's something there, and it feels like it makes sense. Adolis Garcia, this has been going on for quite some time. Chris, is this something you're actually worried about, or try and capitalize and buy low on him?
Yeah, I still think I mostly believe, like he's hitting the ball, the barrel rate is down a little bit, but it's still really good. 13.4% is still a very solid mark. Infield fly balls a little too much. Okay, that's a problem, but it just feels like he's just a little bit off in a way that I think we've seen from Adolis Garcia before. So I don't have too much concern. And then with Salvador Perez, I just think he was hot. Like he's a really good hitter, obviously, but he was like top 5% in expected batting average early on in the season. That was never going to sustain itself, even though the expected stats said that they should. The thing to keep in mind with expected stats is they are descriptive. They are describing what has happened so far, and that has predictive value. But when you're talking about a player like Salvador Perez, who's 34 years old, has played, 1,500 major league games, we have a pretty good idea of who that guy is. And so when he comes out for a month and a half and has an XBA of 310 or whatever it was, you can be pretty sure that what that means is Salvador Perez was really hot for a couple of weeks and was going to have some regression.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that's a good reminder with expected stats, expected ERA, even xFIP Sierra, all of those stats, they are descriptive. They are not predictive. But if there are wild differences between actual numbers and expected stats, if a player continues to perform to that level, eventually the numbers should maybe not catch all the way up, but they should get closer to those. Now, if they start to slump after having all these great expected numbers, then obviously the expected stats will come down as well. So keep those things in mind. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will get there, but if they continue to perform at that level, then there's a good chance that they will.
And the more important thing when we're citing these stats is batting average and ERA, which are the main things that we're trying to divine when we use these stats. Batting average and ERA have almost no predictive value as standalone metrics. And so while XBA, XERA, FIP, Sierra, whichever versions of these you want to refer to, are descriptive and not predictive, they are still significantly more predictive than just batting average and just ERA. So that's the value in looking at those metrics.
Let's get into some of the waiver wire names from Monday. Not too much going on. David Hamilton is someone we've talked a lot about recently. He continues to impress. 1 for 4 with his 5th home run, 2 RBI. Last 16 games for Hamilton. He's batting .294, 3 homers, 11 runs, 12 steals during that stretch. He's up to 71% rostered. There are 4 middle infielders that are higher on the most added list above David Hamilton. Brendan Donovan, Willie Castro, Cedon Rafaela, Josh Smith. Do you agree that those 4 should be ahead of Hamilton? Again, it was Donovan, Castro, Rafaela, and Josh Smith.
I don't know if I think any of them should be ahead of David Hamilton. I know Rafaela's had very good numbers over the past month or so. His underlying metrics are still really bad, so I don't really believe it. I think Hamilton's a better bet for stolen bases than Willie Castro. Castro is weird. We talked about it yesterday. He's been a good fantasy option over the past month or so in a way that is totally out of line with what we've seen from him in the past. I don't buy that Willie Castro is going to be fantasy relevant because of his bat. And so if he's not stealing, I'd rather just have David Hamilton, who is. So yeah, I think Hamilton is probably ahead of those guys, but he's also 71% rostered, and that's probably pretty close to the ceiling, right? Like, I'm not convinced David Hamilton's going to be a points league starter at shortstop, especially. Even second base is probably pretty fringy. So he's probably reached about the point where he can't be rostered in too many more leagues.
I think that makes sense too. I was going to add, of all those names, I think Brendan Donovan in a points league, you can make the argument, while the upside is not massive, he makes a lot of contact, he gets on base. Cardinals lineup has, kind of heated up here recently. So I think in a points league, you could argue Donovan over Hamilton, but any type of categories league, I'm looking at Yahoo, David Hamilton, 69% rostered. I think almost all of their leagues are either roto or head-to-head categories. So yeah, in a league like that, I think Hamilton probably should be at the top of that list of names we just mentioned. Mitch Garver has hit for more power in June, but still a very low batting average. He went 1 for 4 with his 9th home run so far in the month, hitting 200, but he's got 4 homers, 5 doubles, 16 RBI, and 830 OPS. There are things that are happening here. He's 35% rostered. Does Mitch Garver need to be rostered in a one-catcher league? I'm still on the side of probably not.
Probably not is I think where I land. Like, you look at, he didn't hit his first homer of the season until April 17th. Since then, he still only has a 686 OPS. However, that's mostly because of the 181 batting average in that span. He has a 216 BABIP in that span as well, but he's still playing pretty close to every day. His counting stat paces in that stretch are 25 homers, 78 RBI, 65 runs. I think that's still a really nice number 2 catcher. Someone that in a 2-catcher league, I'm probably leaving, and I have been leaving in my lineup pretty consistently because I think the batting average will regress and he'll, hit 240 and be a really solid number 2 catcher. I think in a 1-catcher league, he's probably pretty fringy.
Yeah. Would you rather add Ben Rice or Hunter Goodman over Mitch Garver right now?
Probably both Rice and Goodman over Garver, just because it's one of those opportunity cost things, right? Unless Garver hits like 3 home runs in his next 5 games, you're probably going to see a lot more people trying to add Rice and Goodman over the next week than Garver. So you don't run the risk of missing out on him if he does get hot.
Yep, I think that makes sense. The waiver wire pitchers, not too much going on here, but I will ask about them anyway. Carson Spires turned in a quality start up against the Pirates. 6 innings, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts. He had 11 whiffs on 93 pitches. Lance Lynn, a quality start up against the Braves. 6 2/3, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. Michael Lorenzen was solid at the Brewers. 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. And Griffin Canning, a strong start up against Oakland. 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. He had 13 whiffs on 97 pitches. Chris, do any of those names matter?
I suppose Spires, just because he's new, you can talk yourself into him mattering, but I'm pretty unimpressed by the skill set. I don't think he has a lot of swing and miss potential. His fastballs are pretty bad, so I'm not sure that those are going to be great pitches for him. Lynn, Lorenzen, Griffin Canning, they're all just streamer types, I think. Even when they have pretty good numbers overall, the track record's long enough that I don't think we have to react to good starts from those guys.
And you might be tempted to drop Spencer Schwellenbach, who was picked up for the 2-start week, and he came back down to earth at the Cardinals. 5 innings, 4 runs allowed, but 6 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 14 whiffs on 86 pitches. And he had a 533 BABIP against in this start, despite 85.8 average exit velocity. So I think there was some bad luck here. I like the strikeout to walk ratio. I like the whiffs here as well. So if you picked Schwellenbach up, I think I would probably hold on to him after this one.
Yeah, it's tough because he gave up a single that had a 67 mile per hour exit velocity. that seems like bad luck. He had that batted ball did have a 970 expected batting average. Had another one, 86 miles per hour. That's not especially hard hit. 980 expected batting average on that one. So it's one of those starts where I generally agree with you that he probably did get BABIP'd, and it just so happened that a couple of the softly hit balls he gave up were hit at the right angle, that it wasn't bad luck that he gave up the hits on those specific balls. But I think the poor showing today is probably not as concerning as what we've seen from Drew Thorpe so far. Mm-hmm. I think I still have more faith in Spencer Schwellenbach than Thorpe.
Let's get into some of the leftovers. And first up, we've got three pitchers. Tanner Houck, another quality start. He was facing the Blue Jays, 6 2/3, 3 runs allowed. 2 of those were earned. He had 7 strikeouts, and he now has 13 quality starts. That's tied for the league lead with Logan Gilbert. Aaron Nola, a great start at the Tigers, 7 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, had 12 whiffs on 90 pitches. And Freddie Peralta, solid up against the Rangers, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He had 15 whiffs on 104 pitches. He was back to being fastball Freddie. 11 of those 15 whiffs came on the fastball. Anything to add on Peralta, Nola, and Tanner Houck?
No, I think we pretty much know all these guys. Peralta, the 4.03 ERA is probably a little inflated. I also don't think he's an ace. Mid-3s ERA, tons of strikeouts, not as much volume as you'd like. I think that's who Freddie Peralta is.
A bunch of hitting leftovers, lots of studs with big nights here on Monday. Jose Ramirez, 2 for 4 with his 20th home run, 109.8 exit velocity, 431 feet for J-Ram. Bryce Harper is having his best month of the season. He went 3 for 5 with his 19th home run, added 5 RBI. He's up to an 1185 OPS in June. Vlad Jr. hit the longest home run of his career, 113.1 exit velocity, 471 feet. And he has homered in 3 of his last 4 games. It was the hair, Chris. All he had to do was get rid of the hair. Rafael Devers crushed a few balls in that game as well, 3 for 4 with his 15th home run. Cal Raleigh, a sneaky sock and a shoe. His 13th home run, his 3rd steal. Austin Riley, over his last 10 games, batting .441 with 5 homers, hitting the ball much harder, lots of fly balls during that stretch. And CJ Abrams, a revenge game in San Diego, 3 for 5 with 2 runs and 2 steals. Lots of names here. Was there anything you wanted to hit on some really studly names just having big nights?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to just point out that, like, I feel like the only time we've talked about Rafael Devers this season was when he was hurt. And that just happens sometimes with some of the really great players. It's like, there's nothing to talk about. Like, Rafael Devers is having another Rafael Devers season. But I do want it. I just wanted to speak it, you know? Rafael Devers, awesome player. We haven't talked about it much. Usually, if we don't talk about a player like Rafael Devers, it's because they're just doing their own thing. We talked a lot about Austin Riley, for example. Turns out he's just Austin Riley still. And if you had the opportunity to buy low and you took it, congratulations. Austin Riley's probably going to be like a 900 OPS bat the rest of the way.
Some bullpen updates for the Guardians. Emmanuel Clase was unavailable. It was Scott Barlow who struck out the side for his 2nd save. For the Mariners, Andres Munoz entered with 2 outs in the 8th. He had runners on 2nd and 3rd, a 1-run lead. He gave up a walk and then a 2-run single. He took his 2nd blown save. For the Rays, Pete Fairbanks entered in the 9th with a 1-run lead. He struck out 2 for his 12th save. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley entered the 9th with a 3-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 2 walks and 2 hits, but picked up his league-leading 27th save. For the Royals, James MacArthur struck out 1 for his 13th. For the Dodgers, Evan Phillips entered in the 8th inning with a 2-run lead, facing 2, 3, and 4 in the White Sox lineup. He gave up a hit, but picked up his first hold. It was lefty Alex Vesia who got the 9th and struck out 1 for his 4th save. This one was a little interesting, Chris, because I mean, Phillips has worked the 8th inning 3 other times this season besides this, but before he got hurt leading up to that, he was basically just the closer. So this one kind of stood out.
Yeah, and it's like, do we really need to play the matchup game against the White Sox? Well, you think about the White Sox lineup and like, if there are any hitters that you're worried about,
yep,
it's Andrew Vaughn, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, and Paul DeJong. That's the 4 guys that Evan Phillips faced. So while I don't know if it really, like, if you're really increasing your win probability with a 3-run lead or 2-run lead by playing that game against the White Sox, it still does at least make sense. You'll occasionally see even closers. Traditional closers work the 8th if it's the heart of the order, and especially when whatever you want to say about the heart of the White Sox order, it's much, there might be a bigger gap between the heart of that order and the rest of it than any other team in baseball, because at least those 4 are major league players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's probably fine, but yeah, that was the highest leverage situation in the game for the Dodgers. For the Brewers, Trevor McGill struck out 2 for his 16th save. For the Cubs, a mess. It continues to be terrible. A mess. 2-run lead. It was Colton Brewer who started the 9th. He gave up 1 run on 2 hits. He recorded 1 out. He was relieved by Drew Smiley, who then gave up a hit, a walk, a sacrifice fly, tie game, and then he would walk the next 2, or he gave up a hit and then a walk, and game over on a walk-off walk from Drew Smiley. Hector Neris last pitched on Friday, so he should have been available, but he's just been really shaky over the past couple of weeks, so I don't know where the Cubs go from here. I think Keegan Thompson, there's like the K to walk ratio looks pretty good for him, so maybe they could try him out, but the answer is probably on another team right now. My guess is they make a trade at some point.
The problem there is like the Cubs feel extremely rudderless right now, and the future doesn't look especially bright. I don't know if this is a team that needs to be making win now moves to go buy a closer. My guess, they've given some other guys a try over the last week. They have all failed. My guess is they're going to go back to Hector Neris, who has walked 16% of batters this season. He's been kind of a disaster, but everyone else has been just as bad, if not worse. And they've lost a lot of games because of guys not named Hector Neris. So I'm going to guess they give him another try soon.
Yeah, Cubs currently 3 games out of a wild card spot in just the crazy National League where basically just 2 teams are out of it right now. The Rockies and Marlins are 12.5 out. Every other team is within 3 games of a wild card spot. So
look, they're expansion teams. You can't expect too much from them.
And then for the Nationals, Kyle Finnegan was unavailable. Hunter Harvey entered in the 10th with a 3-run lead. He gave up 4 runs on 3 hits and 2 walks. He took his first blown save and 3rd loss of the season. To stream or not to stream on Tuesday, we have Zach Littell up against the Mariners, I think is okay. Brian Bayo against the Blue Jays, and Tyler Anderson up against Oakland.
Yeah, I think those are the 3. I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Hendricks had a good start against the Giants as well.
On Wednesday, Spencer Turnbull at the Tigers in a revenge game.
My only concern there is you're only going to get like 5 innings.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that makes sense.
But I think they should be 5 good ones.
Andrew Abbott is facing the Pirates. It's in Cincinnati, so I don't love that, but he's pitching well right now.
Yeah, I think that one's probably fine.
Yep. And then scroll.
I like Spencer Arrighetti. I know it's been a really bad season for him. I know he's had good matchups recently that he hasn't taken advantage of. But I did start him in, I think, Tout Wars. So I'm rolling there. As for the rest of them, I'm interested in what DJ Hertz does, but I'm not. I would prefer not to start him.
Yeah.
And then, like, similar to Yadiel Rodriguez, I'm interested to see what he looks like. But after his really poor return from the IL, no way I could start him there.
Let's wrap up with Team Name Tuesday. And
hey!
You haven't been on in a while, Chris, so it's good to have you back. You'll understand some of the pop culture references that Scott and I never get. But these 3 are from someone else named Chris. And first one is Royce Rolls.
Yeah.
I guess he's rolling right now. He's crushing it. Pro Far, Pro Good.
Yep.
Skeins from an Italian restaurant.
Bottle of red, bottle of white.
From Tom. Major Burns.
He adds that it's from MASH. I've never seen MASH. You know?
You can only guess.
But I'm sure it's good.
Yeah. It feels like Marsh, but it's Stott Ober. I didn't know what this was.
I think it's like it feels like it's March, but it's October is what they're going for. I don't know if that's a thing.
Maybe. Guess so.
But that's what I assumed.
Cast a Neto Verlander C.
Sure. Cast a net over land and sea, I guess is what we're going with there. Yeah. You know what? Yeah.
All right. From Robert, wood sail at K Marte, buy low.
Yeah.
From Dylan, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
I don't know if we've seen that one with. There's usually.
Quan.
Yeah, I know. There's usually another name that's involved there, but
You do like Quan Kenobi.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Solid. This was sent from Terry as more of a dinner expression. Scott would fall out of his chair if he was here for this one, just because there's so many names. Please pass a scooble of steer burger along with some Morel Brown Vierling gravy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I also don't know if I could say this last one, Chris. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this last one we got from two different listeners, Brandon and Vincent. Hauk Tua.
Yeah. Yeah. We won't go into why.
If you know, you know. That's it.
But yeah.
All right. We are going to wrap there for Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.